We just recovered the satellite transmission of our last mission to Rexall 4. We all know how it ends. May they rest in peace. Based on this morning's report, I'm moving up the timeline. We need to get back to Rexall 4.
There's got to be a better way. We should be negotiating, finding ways we can share the resources.
This is insanity. Without Hydron, we cannot decontaminate our air.
They have what we need. We secure it now before they can mobilize.
Agreed. Rexall 4 is unstable, but they have more Hydron than the half-dozen planets we've mined so far. In an attempt to avoid detection, I will authorize only the Musk OV-209, piloted by Colonel Herrick, on a covert mission. You leave tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Sir, thanks so much for being here.
A real pleasure.
So what drew you to doing this? Obviously, you're on this show that's the most successful show in the world right now.
Allegedly.
Yeah, and you jump onto this project. It's an anthology series. Each episode is a different story. You're in here with Bryan Cranston. Was that sort of one of the major selling points for you, or was it Philip K. Dick?
Well, it was a combination of both. Bryan is a remarkable actor. I mean, he's, you know, the highest compliment I can pay him is he's not a movie star. He's an actor. I think anybody in our game, you know, would long to be and have the career that he has. I mean, my children grew up to Malcolm in the Middle and then move on to Breaking Bad and stuff. He's just got an extraordinary. So you like to think well of the company you keep, so you try and work with the best people, and he's a remarkable guy. He's also one of the producers on the show. Of the 10 episodes that we have, 5 are shot over here, 5 in the UK, and he is in one of them, and I'm lucky enough to be in the one that he's in.
And talk about the episode that you guys are in together. What story is it based on?
Well, it is. I think it's from the original title, Human Is. And the interesting thing with Philip K. Dick, even though he dealt with futuristic things, robots and all sort of dystopian future, his real interest was in what does it mean to be human, and that's exactly what this episode is about. What makes us human? What you know keeps us away from being just animals on a planet. And also you have to remember that Philip K. Dick, his name may not be incredibly familiar, but you'll know Blade Runner and Total Recall, and he wrote the books that they're from.
Yeah, I mean, if Philip K. Dick should be a name that is incredibly well known. He's really responsible for some of the greatest sci-fi movies we've had in so long, and stories. And you're right, he does deal mostly about what is human, what makes us human, and that is consciousness, and then the things within consciousness that sort of make us even more human. Morality, all of these sort of sticky things that happen to us.
Yeah, the choices that we're left with, which makes us either generous of spirit or just self-serving individuals, and that's what this story is about. And also, I have to say, Essie Davis and Ruth Bradley, who are the two main ladies in this, are absolutely extraordinary. I mean, Essie was in Game of Thrones. You may remember her as the actress that Arya spends time with the traveling troupe, and she's absolutely remarkable in this. She's the main person in this, I suppose.
What is the story behind this particular anthology episode?
Well, this particular one, where, as you can see, this weird place that we're on, and Colonel Herrick, who is Bryan Cranston, he is, when we meet him, he's not a particularly nice character. He's very efficient, military man, very good, definitely a man to have on your side. But on a personal side of things, his relationship with his wife, who you saw there, Essie, is far from nice. I sent him off on this particular mission, which you just saw, and when he comes back from this very dangerous, and he almost gets killed, he comes back and he appears to have re-evaluated his life and comes back a much nicer person. However, there are aliens on this planet, and there is a suspicion that he may not be the man that we think he is, and that's where what makes us human comes in. That philosophical point, as you brought up.
Because then you start sort of looking at somebody and looking at the different things they do, and start criticizing and judging, and what's different about them that's similar to me, and how similar and same should all humans be.
Yeah, and a generosity of spirit, and the idea that we're gregarious animals. If we weren't, we wouldn't live in cities. We would all be in gated communities trying to protect ourselves from each other. But we actually, this room is an example, we love being around other people. It makes us, this is one of the things that makes us human. It makes us feel alive. And that's one of the philosophical points. But it's still a hugely enjoyable story. It's not a lesson in philosophy. It's very tense. It's very good. The acting is incredible in this.
Philip K. Dick.
Of course, exactly.
That's why he always set these sort of discussions in the future, because then they can all be kind of an allegory. Everything is underneath the subtext of this sort of fantastic sci-fi.
What's the phrase? Holding the mirror up to society.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very clever.
We have Black Mirror, which has been doing this wonderfully for the past few years.
Yeah.
Is this series somewhat influenced by Black Mirror? I mean, obviously it's going back further by going to Philip K. Dick's source material.
Yeah, I think so. Well, they stand alone thing. I even think further back than that. If you look at something like The Twilight Zone, where you had these, Rod Serling and all that sort of stuff, where these. Fantastic. I used to, when I was really young, I used to sit up and just watch this stuff. It's fantastic.
We rewatched the pilot for I don't even know if it's necessarily called a pilot in the early 60s when it was made, but the first episode of that, and it's one, stunningly made. Like, it is a beautiful piece of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And two, it's about communism, and it's so fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, you think about that period of time and the fact that this was on TV, and we call this the golden age of TV. It's like, no, TV always had some pretty good stuff on it.
Yes, it did. We just haven't had the amount of beautiful material that are beautiful shows that we do at the moment. I mean, they popped up now and again, but I think when you think, right back from the Word, Sopranos, Mad Men, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, they're coming thick and fast, which is great. I
mean, speaking of we have so many beautiful shows on right now, but what's it like to be a part of the most successful beautiful show?
What's that?
That's on right now?
Which one is that? Sorry, I'm not with you.
Game of something. Musical chairs or something? I don't know.
Oh, it's extraordinary. I got involved in a television show, and I ended up in a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, what's that like?
It's very odd. It's very odd. Somebody asked me a question a while ago, and I said, "What's it like for you now?" And I said, "I live in a world of smiles." It's very odd. I mean, I get off. I'm sure movie stars are used to this all the time, but actors aren't. And it's very odd when you get off a plane in Australia, a place you've never been, and people wave at you. Oh, they're delighted to see you, and you've never met any of them.
And you're not a person that grew up wanting to be an actor or a movie star or anything like that. You kind of fell into it and then took to it.
Yeah, I was 29 when I started doing it. Yeah, I used to be a real person. I was, I was an electrician, earning my living as a real person, and came back and kind of was looking for a distraction. Kind of got bored with the job, so I had a look at this, and I'd loved drama and I'd loved TV and loved movies, but when I started doing it and this weird force took over that just kind of I found myself on a journey I just had to hold on to for dear life. I fell in love with the process, and I didn't think I would. I was literally looking for a distraction. I wasn't getting ahead of myself and saying I'll be picking up an Oscar in about 5 years. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. Did
you take to it right away, or did you have to get over that initial form of embarrassment that comes with performing in front of other people?
No, I'm still fearful of that.
Weird feeling, right?
It's the weirdest thing. It's something that you have to do to enjoy the process. I mean, I love the problem solving of making a character believable and making the journey of a story entertaining for people.
And as soon as you get out in front of the people, you're like,
you go, what the hell did I do this for? It's true, because I did a lot of theatre, obviously. I was at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and there was not, and I've done lots and lots of plays, there has never been a first preview when I've stood in the wings with the lights going down where I haven't said to myself, you complete idiot, what did you say yes to this for?
I'm going to go out and pretend in front of all these people?
I know. Yeah, and I'm going to mess up, and I'm going to forget everything, and I'm going to fall into the audience, I'm going to vomit. Everything goes through your mind. The level of paranoia and beating yourself up is endless.
But then the greatest part about it is when you get 10, 15 minutes into that performance or halfway through it and everything... you just sort of start working on a really beautiful autopilot, and you forget all those things.
It's a gorgeous thing. You know, it's very, very weird. Just the mechanics of it. I don't know if you find it interesting or not. When you're in a rehearsal room and you're dealing with these problems, and the director's going, no, maybe not, maybe this, and it starts to build, and you layer a performance. When you get out to do a first preview, it gets really weird because all of a sudden it feels like there's a new character in the play, and it's the audience. A character that you've never met before, you haven't read in the script, and the whole thing of it is it's an energy in the room. And that what happens is you do try and get through it the first day or two, and that's what your previews are for. And then when you get to, and then what happens is with the repetition of it, and you do, as you say, start to feel a little bit comfortable with it, you start to use the audience as energy, and you start to read an audience, and then you start to adjust that it's almost a tennis. You're playing emotional tennis with an audience, and it's incredibly rewarding when you get it right and you bring them on the journey, and they feed you and you feed them, and that's that gorgeous journey.
But then so much about it is still letting go, right? Like you can only do that with the audience if you've also sort of let go of all of the stuff that you've learned.
Yeah, let go of the technical. Yeah,
yeah.
You let go of the technical. Yeah, you got to let that go and trust yourself and take the lead off the dog.
It's all about being present and in the moment, to be cliche for a second. But in order to do that, I mean, so basically as an actor, you build up all this stuff to be the character. Yeah. And then you kind of have to just hope that it's internal so that you can be present.
Exactly. It's almost
moment.
like a dance. It's almost like learning a dance, learning a tango or whatever. When you get to a point where you know the moves, but if you do them 1, 2, 3, it looks incredibly boring. Oh, yeah. But when you put them all together and just kind of go, let's see what happens, and you've got a partner you're dancing with, and suddenly you're looking into their eyes and they're looking into yours, and you enter this journey. That's when an audience is going to go, oh, I see what they're doing. They're kind of really edgy. They're on the edge, but I'm really enjoying it. And
is your favorite part the process or that mid performance where you feel like you're in the moment?
There's kind of in theatre. I've always kind of thought that theatre is the gymnasium for an actor. That's where you go. And to my shame, I haven't done it for a number of years now, but that's kind of where you go. It's where the audience fill up the acting batteries, if you like. And the reason being is very simple. The curtain goes up at 8 o'clock. You've got 2 hours to hold an audience. It's not like you're doing film or television whereas I like to say, it's hours of boredom followed by seconds of terror. But you've got a certain amount of time to get that particular portion right, and then it's up to editors and producers and directors and all sorts of people and the musicians to piece together this beautiful jigsaw. But you've got a huge responsibility as regards storytelling when the curtain goes up, and it's just you. It's bare. It's this beautiful play, hopefully, and the audience, and the audience is very well versed in knowing BS when they hear it or see it, and so you got to. I've just always tried not to patronise or be condescending to an audience, and just treat them as if it's me in there, and I'm not cynical about things, but I think the old saying is if you build it, they will come.
Very American saying from the
field.
Field,
very true,
from the Field of Dreams.
Kevin Costner, yeah.
All about baseball.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit more about Game of Thrones, because you guys are coming up on the last season, right?
Yep.
And what does that feel like? Have you been able to see some of the scripts yet? Do you know what's going to happen? What's going on?
They lied to me this week. They promised me I'd get them early this week, the new season. And the reason they promised them early is because Saturday afternoon I get on a plane and I go back to Dublin, where I live, and then instead of going right to my house, I go left to Belfast. And we're going to do the first table reading of the first 3 episodes on Sunday, and the second table reading of the final 3 on Monday, and then we start rehearsals, and then the following week we start shooting in anger, and we kick off the very last Game of Thrones. Yeah, my accountant is biting their nails at the end of this. Don't leave him. Tell him you want more. Tell him you want more.
Get a spin-off.
Yeah. Better call Davos. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Are you nervous leaving outside of the financial aspect? Are you, or is there something? I mean, this show has been with you for a number of years now. Is it maybe your longest running project that you've been a part of?
It is the longest. I don't do series. I got that. Well, they asked me when I met them originally. They said you don't do series, and I said no. I get bored easily. But the scripts were so good, and it's HBO, and also I said it's 2 hours from my front door.
It's a rarity.
Indeed, yeah. There's not too many planes involved. And these jobs don't come along. I mean, one of the reasons people love this is because it's so unusual and beautifully written and written by grown-ups, for grown-ups, and it challenges you. It punches you in the stomach occasionally. You hate it occasionally and are horrified by it, but it's honest and it's fantastic characters. And that's what an actor screams for his entire career. And to have that handed to you is fantastic. To have it taken away is horrible. And it is going to be taken away. And then we look for the next thing. I will mine as deeply as I can to try and find something that's worth doing as much as I possibly can when it's finished.
That's got to be kind of the hardest part to a degree when you get at something like Game of Thrones, finding the next thing that's also worth doing in the way that project always felt like it was.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, I've been very lucky. Every couple of years I've got something. It might be an art house or it might be, a brief moment but I do try to do stuff that I would find entertaining myself, and that is difficult to do. There's a director friend of mine said I remember doing a play one time, a director friend said, I just said, this is really difficult. And he looked me in the eye and he said, Liam, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And he had a point,
Everybody thinks that they can do it, though.
Well, they do until they try. Yeah. They do until they try, yeah. Well, we should if our job is to make it look easy, Yeah. Like your job is the same.
Oh, my job's easy.
No,
just talking. No, take me back to... I think Game of Thrones will live on in infamy for so many reasons, and people will love so many things. But I think the most iconic moment of the show will probably be either the Red Wedding or Jon Snow's death. What was it like for you when you got the script for Jon Snow's death? Did you know that the next season, was going to be a return or anything like that?
It's funny you should say that. Kit Harington was told, zip it, don't tell anybody.
He knew.
He knew, but he was under strict instructions not to inform anybody in case somebody spilled the beans. He felt Kit's a gorgeous guy, and he felt increasingly guilty. One of the reasons is Sophie Turner, plays Sandra, actually wrote him, who he's not. She's been on the show since she was like 12 or 13, so they're like brother and sister in reality. And she wrote a long, long letter to him saying, I'm really going to miss you when he and he was reading this going, I'm a pig, I'm a complete, because he was lying to her. And he did say in an interview, he said he was asked, did anybody not believe him? He said, there was one guy didn't believe me. When I won't use the word because I know we're live, but
no, you can use it.
No, no, naughty audience. He did. I did say to him, so when are you coming back? And he said, I'm not coming back. And I did tell him to F off. So he said that Liam was the only one who just wouldn't entertain it for a moment. But he had everybody else convinced.
What made you unconvinced?
It's Jon Snow, he had to come back. I'm a fan like everybody else. What, is he going to die and disappear? It wasn't going to be a Ned Stark moment. No, we had to bring him back. And I was even more delighted when the next season came in. I went, yes, it's me with getting Melisandre to come in and get him back. Yes, I can live with that.
Did you walk around being like, don't worry, he's going to be back?
I'll get him. I'll bring him back. Don't you worry, folks. He's gorgeous. He's coming back. Yeah, he's great. I'm so glad he did. He's great to work with.
And you're so right that the show can be frustrating at times, too. And just this past season, what I loved was the second to last episode, the response was, dude, this show ripped me off again, blah, blah, blah. And people were so mad. And then the finale, everyone was like, greatest show on TV. Changed my life. I love this show so much. I know. Like the episode before had never happened. They were just suddenly like unbelievable.
It's extraordinary. It's like having a family member. They really piss you off one day, and the next day they brought me a cake. I love them. I've always loved them. But it was like that. Listen, in my house, it's the same. We sit on the couch and watch them. I see them at the same time as everybody else. Yeah. And after the Sansa episode with the thing with my daughter stood up, looked me in the eye, and went, I'm never watching this show again. And as she walked out, I went, yes, you will. And sure enough, she came back.
How did she handle the finale then?
Oh, no, listen, that's what's great about the show. It's up and down. There's a great YouTube video on the Red Wedding reaction. If you haven't seen it, it's like a 6-minute long thing. And when people haven't watched the show and they say, what's it like? And I went, I'm not telling you. Have a look at that. And I showed them, and it's all these people who've read the books and had their phones ready, and their friends are watching the Red Wedding for the first time. To see all these people going, no, screaming at the television. And I said, that's the golden age of television, when you can have that response, that visceral response. when you invest like so heavily in it, and that's good storytelling. That's all we should do as actors, try and tell good stories.
Let's get some questions from you guys. Who's got a question right here?
Hi, good afternoon.
How you doing?
Good, how are you? Good. I was just wondering, with your long career, do you have a preference with playing one character for a long period of time or one character for the short period of time and then moving on?
Yeah, I've got a really bad attention deficit disorder, I think. So I can't stay too long with anything. This is an anomaly. It's gorgeous, and I would love for this to go on, but it's a bit like the Beatles. It's get out while you're ahead before everybody hates you. When you hear it's going to end, you kind of prepare yourself for it, and you kind of go, okay, yeah, it's a good thing. This story always had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and we all know there are shows that kind of overstay their welcome and kind of reduce the value of the beauty that you saw before by just trying to make lots of money at it. And you know, all credit to HBO. They're kind of going, I'm sure it kills them, but they're kind of going, yeah, we understand, and they're
It's killing
them. I tell you, the accountants over there are jumping off the building. They can't believe it. Yeah, but they're doing the right thing, and it's an artistic. They're trying to be as artistic about it. And David and Dan are always said this was going to be 70 hours, and we've actually got 73. But sorry, to answer your question, with a face like this, you've got to play a lot of baddies, so which I have done. So I love to mix and match, and if you start repeating yourself, the audience sees the repetition and they kind of get bored of it and want to move on. So for myself, and so as I don't insult fine people like yourselves, I try and mix and match and keep it going as much as possible and keep the difference going. Like this character's in the Electric Dreams is very different. He's a general and he's in charge, and he's kind of a cool character, but he's a straight shooter and he's trying to do the right thing. But he's very different. And a lot younger looking as well, isn't he? Isn't he? Yes, he is.
Next question.
Hi.
Yeah.
I was just curious, since you haven't done theater in a while, would you go back to doing theater again?
I would love to. I'd love to. In fact, I did a kind of rehearsed, a kind of reading on stage recently with Tywin, with the lovely Tywin Lannister, the long dead Tywin. And Michael Gambon was supposed to do it as well. In Dublin, and doing some Friel and Beckett, and I hadn't been on stage in front of a gang doing written stuff before for a long time, and I went out and the guy who produced it came to me and looked at me and went, "You've got the bug again, haven't you?" And it is. It's a bit like a drug. You want to go out and you want to explore that conversation with an audience, and it's really cool. And I should get back, but as I like to say, my children have got used to wearing shoes, so it's kind of theatre doesn't pay too well. So I decided after a number of years that I'd like to be able to pay my bills, and TV and film is the way to do it. But I'm constantly guilty about not doing theatre. As I said, it's the gymnasium for actors now. I haven't been at the gym in a while. I'm not telling you. It's about 10 years actually. Yeah.
And you're time for one more question.
Hi, I've always been interested in why people change careers. So what led you from becoming an electrician where you can just go home at night and not be noticed, be an everyday type of individual, to being on the biggest show right now on television where you probably can't even go to a pub without being recognized?
Well, there was a 27-year gap, I think, before the decision and before the 20-odd-year gap. But briefly, what happened was I went to live in Africa. I actually went to work in Africa, in Zimbabwe, for 3.5 years when I was, as I say, a real person. And I was working on high voltage. Basically, I was doing what Richard Dreyfuss did in Close Encounters. That was my job. Close Encounters, the third kind.
For aliens?
No. Before he got the suntan, so one of the areas I looked after was the national park, which is the size of Belgium. There's 16,000 elephants and all that. So I did that for a number of years. Came back, and from driving around the city like I did before I went to Africa, I kind of went, I've done this, I can't do it anymore. So I was looking for a distraction. Saw an ad on the back of a newspaper for an acting school, and went, I could do it a hobby. And when I started doing it, I went, what? And I just kind of fell in love with it. So it wasn't, I would love to say it was by design, But I found my vocation quite late and quite by accident.
Do you think falling in love with it had to do with the teacher that you had as well and the setting of the classroom, or was it really just acting that hooked you? Because a bad acting teacher can also be something that really puts people off of it as well.
Well, I was kind of old enough when I started. I was like 26 when I started doing that. I kind of recognized quite quickly that the acting school was like a training field. I wasn't expecting someone to flick a switch in my head and go, now you're an actor. I really used it. I went, what are manners? What are, what's contemporary? What's Shakespeare? How do the technical side of things they were brilliant with. But I think they just kind of let me off the leash and kind of let me make a fool of myself for a year and then tried to hone me for the second year. But I was very lucky. I had people who've been in the business a long time, people who were very passionate. And then at the end of it, I'm kind of going, I don't want this to end. I love the schooling. And then the head of the school just kind of went, you've no choice, dude. You have to resign the job. You have to do this. You've no choice. So, and that kind of helped me make the decision then to burn my bridges.
The head of the school was like, you should stop being an electrician now.
Yeah, you need to go professional. Yeah. So that
nerve-wracking for you?
It kind of confirmed my worst suspicions that I was going to have to starve my family. But I had the trade, I had the toolbox. It wasn't like I was. I mean, if it all went wrong in a couple of years, I could have been on the skyscrapers over here, swinging out of a harness. But luckily enough, some idiot saw me and liked what I did. So
we're glad you didn't.
Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you so much for being here. Electric Dreams. I think your episode is playing in the UK at the end of the month.
End of this month, yeah.
End of this month, the 29th, I think.
That's right here, yeah.
And then, but all of the episodes are going to be coming to Amazon next
Correct.
year, right?
Absolutely. Early next year, I believe. Keep watching. There's some fantastic people involved in this.
Early next year, and Game of Thrones, final season, I think sometime next year, probably.
Allegedly. Maybe the following year. I'm not saying anything.
Is there anything else we should be throwing out to people right now that they should go take a look at?
Not that I can think of, no. Not that I can think of.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Liam Cunningham. Give it up.
Thank you very much.